welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Manufacturers Championship. It's round number 5 at Brands Hatch. This was my qualifying session. You can see there, so far not gone brilliantly. Lap 5, which was the first lap after pitting for fresh tyres, a 23.2. I expected much better than that on that lap. Really should have been down to a 22.8 on that lap. Unfortunately, first sector on my second run, not great. And then you can see going through this sector now, over a tenth down on the time. Didn't quite get the power down as well as I would have liked coming onto this straight. So I was going to have to do some really attacking driving in the last few sectors to be able to get a good lap. And you can see over 2 tenths down now at this point. And this is going to show you the first 2 sectors weren't too bad on my actual lap from the pits, but this last sector I didn't hook it up at all. So I knew there was a chance to go and improve a little bit. And this is just going to show you the potential that I really should have been hitting in qualifying. As you can see there, running wide through that sector, I managed to get still up slightly on the previous lap. You can see going through this sector I had quite a big margin to gain, and I'd gained quite a lot straight away just in that little sector. And as we come to the finishing line, you're going to see from that split where we were over 2 tenths up, I've managed to gain nearly, I think it's nearly 4 tenths. You can see there, nearly 4 tenths I managed to gain. So there was potential 100% to get a 22.7 or 8, and unfortunately I didn't hook it up. And it would have, I could obviously had the potential to get pole, didn't hook it up. Still though, in P4 was very happy with that, considering I'd only done 1 race practice and 1 qualifying practice and a little bit of time trial to obviously get down to a 22.4. A lot of other people have tried multiple cars out. I could see the cars changing a lot, and I've obviously practiced a fair bit in race practice for this race. But obviously this is the Nations. I don't take this as serious as I've been trying to do the manufacturers, although I'm doing a lot better in the Nations when you compare it to the manufacturers. Although we did have a very nice race in the manufacturers, my first race where I did okay. You can see I was starting P4 in this race. Some fast drivers in this race again. But I could see the qualifying wasn't quite as competitive as I thought it would be. I was expecting to have to hit a 22 to really get in the top 5, because that's what I had hit in my first practice attempt in the lobby qualifying that I did. And you can see visually by that lap at the end of the sector, you can see how much I should have been faster, because I gained so much just on that last sector to the other lap. I really should have been hitting a 22.9 at least, but didn't do it. So starting from P4, the one area I wasn't too confident at in this race was going to be my race pace, purely because I hadn't really done much. I'd done 1 set of 8 laps together as race practice. I hadn't done a full actual stint of the 18 laps required to to see if I could even hold it on the track, pushing reasonably hard for that amount of time. I do know the track very well. I know the Porsche very well at this track, but obviously a lot of people are going to be pushing really hard in these FIA races. So I was just going to see how the race went and just decide on my strategy. If I would have got in the top 2 positions, I would have probably pushed 100% as much as hard as I could. But I felt like the safest option for this race, starting in P4, was going to be just to try and short shift it, save the tyres, keep it consistent, don't make any stupid risks. I want to keep this car on the track and pick up some more solid points, because I didn't do the first few rounds of the Nations again. So I need to pick up solid points in every race. So that's pretty much determining how I've got to race these races. If I had done from race 1, obviously I would have been more aggressive in these races, but unfortunately I didn't. But starting P4, a great place to start really in this high split race. Obviously a top split race with a lot of fast drivers. You can see there going on board with the replay camera. Straight away that Golf behind me, I really didn't, as soon as I saw the Golf behind me, I was really a little bit worried, because I'd watched a stream from Ticheney and I'd spotted that the Golf was really good at its fuel consumption. So I really had to find a way to just try and hold him off and try and do some speed, but I also had to try and save some fuel to see if I could come out ahead of him. But it was going to be a hard task, because the Golf on this GR3, it's insane the ability at its fuel saving. It can short shift and maintain its speed, so that's why it saves a lot of fuel, similar to the Bugatti, the way it saves its fuel by short shifting. But you can see straight away the Renault in front of me actually made a mistake and again ran wide, and I had a little look twice. I had a look before the corner and again there, decided there's no point risking that. I'm best just tucking back in behind, getting in the slipstream, and just trying to make sure I don't lose a position to the driver behind. Obviously everyone's so close together at the start of this race. One mistake could cost you massively. You could drop down 4, 5, 6 positions easily in this race. So just trying to keep it steady. I didn't want to make any stupid moves on lap 1. There's no point risking it on lap 1. just keep the car on the track. Don't throw it up the inside. You know, I was too far back anyway. There was no way I could have done anything. He held the inside line for the corner, so I would have had to go around the outside of a fast corner. And that's just not going to happen. So you can see, just trying to hold on at this point. At this point, I was short shifting and trying to save some fuel because of that Golf. I was in a really difficult position because if I drive aggressive in this point now, I'm going to drag that Golf along with me. He's going to be able to save fuel while doing that. So I was thinking, what do I do here? Do I just try and short shift and see if I can hang on to that slipstream with that Renault in front of me? You can see driving fairly aggressive at this point, but this corner I really was a bit nervous on because I obviously hadn't practiced that much, so I was struggling to get the power down on the exit there. You can see that the Renault in front pulls away a little bit there and just about staying onto the slipstream, so I'm just trying to short shift it ever so slightly, not over revving the car, because while I'm in the slipstream I can do that, but if I lose that slipstream I'm going to have to go to a more short shifting strategy, because if I drive aggressively to stay with this car in front and the Golf just gets dragged along, I've got no chance against the Golf, because it's just so, you can just save so much fuel in the pit stop. It'll be 3, 4, 5 seconds shorter, etc. But you can see, driving okay at this stage, coming to the end of lap 2, still in P4, so everything's okay. I was really happy with, to be fair. I didn't expect to be doing, I expected to be around P6 to 10 in these races for this race, because a lot of people would have been practicing a lot for this Nations race. Obviously I did a little bit more for the manufacturers because I need to put more effort into that to get my season going in that. This is just more for fun, these Nations races. Just jumping on, doing a quick time trial. I did it on the morning, I think it was. Got myself down to a 22.4. There was a lot more potential. I felt like I could get a low 22, but I didn't want to spend too much time in time trial. I went into the lobby, did one 8-lap stint, and then did a qualifying stint as well. The qualifying stint went really well, 22.8 I think I hit, and then in the when I was driving aggressively in my practice for the race, because that's how I did my practice, I drove aggressive, I was just constantly hitting low 23s. But obviously for this now, I'm having to short shift because of that Golf behind me, so I knew that the lap times would be at least 3, 4, 5 tenths off of that. As you can see there, the Golf had a little look up the inside, and that's another threat of the Golf. It's very fast in a straight line, so I had to be very cautious of the Golf behind me going onto the straights. You see, it looks like he had a little moment there on the rear end, but just about saved it. You see the RS01 in front of me has actually pulled out to about 1.4 seconds, so I haven't got that slipstream anymore, so I've got to pretty much resort to some form of like short shifting when I can, and just trying to save a bit of fuel whenever possible. You can see, going onto the replay camera, just look how close that Golf is on the power zone. As soon as the Golf puts its power down, it's just going to come closer and closer to myself. But luckily I was able to get reasonably good exits with the Porsche, and that was really stopping any ability the Golf has got to get into a position to overtake. So at the moment everything's going okay. You can see the Evolution behind the Golf, also a very fast driver, putting pressure on that Golf, which is probably going to help me out more than anything, because I haven't got a slipstream or anyone to worry about attacking. I can now just concentrate on my lines a bit more whilst the Golf is under pressure. So you can see, got a little bit of a cushion to that Golf behind me, and the RS01 now, it looks like he's staying about 1.5 seconds ahead, 1.6, 1.7 seconds ahead. He's not really increasing that lead too much. The aim was just to try and stay with them as much as possible, although I was pretty sure that obviously TRL driver at the front and would have possibly have been fuel saving a little bit more. A lot of these drivers probably practice a bit more than others do. I don't really know how much they practice, but I think if I would have practiced more, I would have had a few attempts extra a lap. But going into racing with a little practice, E4 doing really well at this stage, and you can see got a bit of a gap between the Evo and the other cars behind them, so a little bit of a comfort gap if there is a mistake made. You can see the Evo's actually dropped back a little bit from the Golf there. Looks like it's made a slight error going through the really fast section in the middle sector, the fast corners, just maybe clip the grass somewhere. So easy to do at this track with these Group 3 cars, and it can really mess your lap up if you do it. But you can see in the distance there is a nice little gap building. As you can see, the Renault runs really wide onto the sand and kicks up all the sand into the air. Luckily for him, doesn't actually lose control of the car. It puts me back a little bit closer to it. It looks like he built that gap up to nearer 2 seconds, but now it looks like it's come back down to about 1.5, 1.6 seconds. Let's have a little look there. You can see, yeah, it's come under that 2 seconds gap, as it looked like he had increased it slightly before that, but obviously as he's made that mistake, he's obviously lost about 4 or 5 attempts at least. But you can see the leaders, we're on lap 5, are still in reach. They're 3.5 seconds ahead of the leading driver. He's not pulling away massively, and that's why I kind of expected them to be doing some form of fuel saving, because I'm doing fuel saving a little bit as well, not extreme, but obviously I wasn't really confident of pushing. I felt I could have driven this race really aggressively and gone for pretty much 23.1s to freeze all the way up to lap 8, with obviously the odd 23.5. But I felt I did it in my practice run, and I did 8 laps pretty nicely, but I felt like I was that close to the limit that it was too risky without doing more practice. And I felt if I would have practiced more, I could have probably done that and really pushed it hard. But I decided for the safer option, obviously, because I haven't done all the rounds yet. And this is my 3rd race in the Nations Championship, so I've got to just keep getting solid points. I'm still a round behind everyone else because most people now in the championship have got all 4 rounds done. And so far I'm going okay, doing okay in this Nations Championship. But you can see there now on lap 6 and P3 in front of me there. He's around 2 seconds ahead again, but he's really caught up to P1 and P2, who are look like they're battling quite close. It looks like TRL was just sitting in that slipstream and just trying to save his fuel, probably trying to save as much fuel as he can for the pit stop. And then because he's doing that, obviously Jonas is probably doing the same thing and saving a lot of fuel, so their pace is dropping a little bit. But even with that, they're still maintaining good speed. Unfortunately, my laps, I had a few very bad laps. You can see lap 3, 24.4, really should have been in low 23s at this point, 23.4. You can see by the qualifying runs that I was doing with full fuel, I was able to get 23.3s and 4s and stuff, but I felt like it was too risky. I didn't want to push like I would on the qualifying lap. Maybe I should have done it and just been a bit more aggressive, but I felt with the Porsche, if you drive this Porsche really aggressively, the fuel just goes down so fast that it's just not, it kind of just destroys your races in the pit stop, because these races have pretty much won and lost in the pit stop in these FIA races, because so much is about fuel saving. I'm really hoping that in the future maybe they drop some of this fuel consumption down, maybe make the races a little bit longer and just keep it a little bit more realistic, and then just force a pit stop for tyre change, make that compulsory, a tyre change, and then just make sure that you start with maybe a little bit less fuel like they do on iRacing. Start yourself with a 20%, 30% fuel tank, make it so that can't physically get to the end on that, so that you have to put some fuel and change the tyres in the pits. It would make a lot of sense, and I think it would get rid of a lot of the fuel saving that goes on. You'll find drivers that would just push a little bit harder because the benefits wouldn't be as great, because if it's not times 4, 5, 6, etc., you're not going to get the benefits from that fuel consumption as much by short shifting. It would take you a lot longer to save anything worthwhile, by which time you'd lose out because you could just drive aggressively and you'd get that time back pretty quick. But you can see now the RS01 in front of me, 2.4 seconds ahead. I'm trying my best to drive reasonably well, but I just didn't feel confident at pushing too hard. You can see I'm doing okay though. I'm keeping that Golf behind me. He's about 7 tenths behind. He's not gaining too much on me. He seems to be losing a little bit every now and then, but then coming back. So possibly he's saving a lot of fuel during the middle sector and then just bringing it back on the straights. That's possibly what he was doing. I really don't know, but I was really worried about that, the Golf, obviously because I'd watched Tiffany's stream, and I knew that the Golf was going to be a little bit of an issue when you get to the pit stop phase. He did show on his stream, it's like we're 4 or 5 seconds over the Porsche and the RS01, but you can see up front now, coming to the end of lap 8, and this is one of the reasons why I didn't pick the Renault, because come to the end of lap 8, it was probably the fastest car for the first 6-7 laps, but then I know from fact from driving that car at this track, the tyres start getting a little bit dodgy and get a little bit dangerous, and then for me, with not much practice, that was too risky for me, so I decided to pick the Porsche, which is the safer option. As you can see there, the RS01 with them tyres, he's lost control of his car. I'm going to show a replay of that at the end. It looks like when I watch it back, it's just the rears going. We'll have a little look at the replay at the end of this race, but I'm up to P3 now, just 1.8 seconds behind TRL in front of me, and then you've got Jonas in the lead, fractionally ahead of that. Very close racing going on between them two. So I've just got to stay out now to the end of lap 9. I was going to pit dead in the middle, felt like it was the safest option to go for. I'd actually kept the tyres reasonably well. That was one thing that I've noticed there. If you don't push massively hard, like going 20, when I did 23 ones, 23 threes, 23 4, 5, 6s, etc., all the way for the first 8 laps by aggressively driving, with the fuel mixture going really revving it out, I noticed that the tyre wear was a little bit more severe than what it is now. It quite surprised me, the difference. The left rear was a lot more worn when I did my practice run pushing with maximum revs compared to this run, and it really does show you the benefits from doing that. And this is why I'm gaining now on these slightly. Obviously they're doing fuel saving, but I think they were doing that in the first stint. I think the reason I'm gaining is purely because of the tyres. I know that RS01 will be struggling on this lap on its tyres, and I know that Jonas in the I think he might have been in the possibly he was in the Evolution, I can't really remember, but that car also will start struggling a little bit, but I don't really know if it struggles as much as the RS01. I did expect TRL Manu to pit on this lap with myself. You can see now getting very close to them now, and maybe he wanted to see what other people's fuels was like before he pitted, because that's one thing. If you pit without knowing other people's fuel, it's a bit of a lottery. You can see I decided to go, no way I was going to risk another lap. I wanted to get in the pits. He stays out, and I think personally he made a little bit of a mistake there, because I think the TRL driver had a lot of pace. I think if he would have pitted, then he would have had a better chance of getting himself towards the front, but it was his decision. Obviously he was just, I think he wanted to sit in that slipstream a little bit longer and save some fuel. So I pretty much do it on the diamond, straight back out. You can see I've been jumped by that Golf by a good few seconds, but as I come out the pit, you can see there, I wasn't aware that the Evolution that was behind the Golf had actually pitted on lap 8, and he's managed to get the jump on me because of obviously the fresh tyres, and he's managed to jump me, and there was not really much I could do because I didn't see him pit. I should have really been paying attention, but I didn't notice it. I was too busy concentrating on the drivers in front. So now I've just got to try and hang on to that Evo. I know he's a very fast driver. Obviously he's got up to speed, he's done his outlap, and he's got used to the fresh tyres. One thing again that I struggled with the lack of practice was getting straight back up to speed from the pit stop. I do struggle with this sometimes in quite a few races. It takes me quite a while to start feeling the grip again, and it's something I definitely need to start improving. It's probably because I'm not driving aggressive. If I was driving 100% all the time, I'd probably go into that rhythm a lot quicker. You can see staying with him at this point, but trying to push around these corners, around a little bit wide there, got a little bit close to that grass, but not too bad. You can see riding on board with P3 now. Well, technically P3, I think one driver hadn't pitted at this point. You can see P4 actually, because the Golf had also jumped us, so I'm down to P5 at this stage. But you can see he gains on me on that final corner to the back straight. It's another corner where I was a little bit cautious, because obviously it's so easy to get on the power too early and put them tyres onto the grass on the left. You've seen it, I think, in one of my previous FI races when Twizzy did it, lost control of his car and ended up spinning round. It's so easily done. I just didn't want to risk anything. But you can see he's pulling away now in this Evo. He's obviously getting on with it. I decided I was pretty much just keeping the fuel consumption the same straight out the pits. I didn't want to start revving the car and burn up my fuel straight away. So you can see my fuel's in really good position at the moment. I've got very nice amount of fuel left. You can see I've actually got more fuel than I need at this point. That's why I'm just going to keep driving without over revving. You can see I'm short shifting. I'm not going to I didn't want to just get put into a trap of driving aggressively, because I did know, obviously I realised that P4 must have pitted earlier because he obviously jumped me, and I've realised that if he's done that, he's going to have to be doing 10 laps on the second stint, so I've got better tyres. So I thought the best option for me is just to keep the fuel the same, because for the last few laps he might have to start doing some fuel saving, and also his tyres are going to start kicking him with some wear. But he's obviously driving aggressive. He's caught up to the leaders in front. You can see he's 3.2 seconds behind Jonas now, so not lost massively to I lost about a second and a half in the pit. So they had obviously done some fuel saving, but not as much as what I thought they'd done. But you can see TRL Manu obviously pitted the same lap as Jonas. Maybe he didn't save as much fuel in the pits, but I did expect him to jump him, because obviously sitting in the slipstream you do get the advantage. But then again, the Renault, I've driven that car, it's not very good on fuel. It's probably a little bit worse than the Porsche. So he done a good job, you know, being able to save as much fuel as he did. But again, I think if he would have just pitted at lap 9, he could have then just gone really aggressively, like I got undercut by the Evolution that was about a second and a half, 2 seconds behind me. He could have done the same type of thing, probably got in the lead. I think he would have been able to do that, and I think he might have pulled away if he'd done that. I think he had a bit more speed, but it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if that, but he chose to stay out and sit in that slipstream. You can see the Evolution pulled a little bit away from me, and I ran a little bit wide. I decided to start to try and push a bit, and ran a little bit wide through that corner, and that always makes you a bit panicky. So I wanted to obviously gain a little bit. I managed to close in a bit, but again, on the cut, I was so lucky there. I clipped the grass up with the left rear tyre, I think it was, and the rear stepped out on me, but luckily I hit it at an angle that I just got back on the power and kept it on the track. So I lost out on nearly a second. I had it at 1.9 seconds a gap, I think it was just under 2 seconds a gap, and now it's up to 2.6, 2.7 seconds. So I lost about 7-8 tenths just by that one mistake, which was frustrating because I really wanted to start pushing. And then that obviously sends you into panic mode about, you know, do I just start taking it a little bit easier? Because you start thinking that was a close one, you know, I can't afford to be making any more mistakes like that. You can see P6 behind me. He's now around 3 seconds behind. He's a fast driver, obviously P6, and I thought I can't really afford to make much more mistakes. So I decided to just settle down back into a rhythm, short shift it, and just try and keep the car on the track, not worrying too much about the drivers in front. I could have probably pushed I did start pushing, and as soon as I did, I made a mistake. It was just a better idea to keep it safe, keep the car on the track, and just concentrate on the road. See, obviously that mistake also lost me a little bit of time to lead us down to nearly 5 seconds behind at this stage. So I've just got to try and keep consistency. And one thing that really surprised me at this track was the amount of variety in the car section. There was obviously your Porsches, which I went, the Renault RS01, the Golf was a surprise. There was some other, you know, Beetles. I think Lightning won his race with a Beetle, and obviously the Evolution. There was quite a big variety of cars that were being used for this track, and that was good to see. You know, that a lot of people were finding a preference in terms of the way a car handles and picking it. And that's one thing I really want to do, is start trying to find some other cars, because there is definitely some cars that are underused in the GR3 class, because, you know, a lot of people are proving it that just because a car, I've said it before in other videos, just because a car is good at time trial, and people say that car's overpowered, and this is one area why I don't like that they the BOP is, I think they judge their BOP from the time trial leaderboard. That is not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is by the race wins of the car, you know, in the race conditions, because, you know, the Ferrari, perfect example is the Ferrari Group 3 car, the 458. It's a very fast car over one lap, but it's terrible in a race because its tyre wear is so bad. So no one will really pick that for any sort of FIA race, because it will just chew its tyres up and you'll have no chance. That's why I think they need to really have a little, that's where the BOP starts having issues, I think, and that's why a lot of people don't really, they tend to pick their cars based off the leaderboard. I picked the Porsche purely because I knew that it's stable with tyre wear, and that's what I was looking for in this FIA race, a car that was not going to lose too much tyre wear towards the end of the stint. You can see I'm still doing personal best on lap 14, so 5 laps into the stint, you know, doing okay laps, not trying to overdrive the car, still short shifting it as much as possible, and just keeping consistent. You can see I've actually started to gain a little bit back on P4, so he's obviously having to start thinking about doing some form of fuel saving, and obviously his tyres are going to be that 1 lap older, and with the tyre wear on times 9, that is like 9 laps. You know, 1 lap is the equivalent to 9 laps with this type of tyre wear, so he's going to be feeling that tyre wear a little bit more than myself. You can see again coming out that corner, you can visually see that I've gained on him, and also the Golf, I seem to be gaining on that Golf, where he's obviously having to do a little bit of fuel saving also. He obviously under-fueled very slightly to make sure that he jumped me in the pits, but doing okay, closing in on P4 again after that mistake. It was a bit frustrating that I made that error when going through that corner, because I would have been about 1.4, 1.5 seconds now, and if I could have picked up that slipstream I might have been able to get a little bit closer to the other cars, but I don't think I had the actual speed anyway to compete for the top 2 positions. I think myself, P3 and P4 were very closely matched. You can see I'm actually starting to gain on P4 now. He's 2.2 seconds ahead. Obviously he's having to do, it looks like by looking at the delta, I seem to be gaining on the middle sector, so he was obviously trying to save some fuel in that middle sector by putting the fuel mixture up. I didn't need to do that because I've been doing just a constant short shifting way through every lap instead of, you know, moving to mixture 2 through the middle sector. I was just short shifting mixture 1. I obviously didn't test out properly. I didn't really do enough testing and practice to start going, you know, the perfect way to do the fuel mixture. So I just kept it a fairly consistent way by just not over revving it and keeping it in one mixture. It's less messing as well then, and sometimes keeps you driving a little bit more consistent. But you can see I'm definitely gaining on P3 there, P4 sorry. You can visually see now the gap between myself and P4 is getting a little bit closer every time we come around the same corners. P3 sorry, is just a little bit away from P4. It looks like he's just outside the slipstream. P4 is just outside his slipstream. So we're coming through to now the last few laps, obviously end of lap 16, 2 more laps after this lap to go. And at this point I was just thinking, just keep it consistent. I'm gaining a little bit on P4. I'm probably not going to be able to make any sort of attempt of an overtake, but obviously lap 10 is where he's going to start struggling probably. So just try and keep it consistent, and if I can pick up that slipstream at some point, you know, maybe I can start gaining. So get now down to 2.1 seconds behind P4, and it looks like he's had a little bit of an error going through there, and he clipped the grass exactly the same as I did on the lap a few laps ago, but he's come off a lot worse, and I've got myself up to P4 now. So it was a risky strategy pitting that lap earlier on the first stint. You know, the safer way to do it is obviously go do the first stint with 10 laps and then do 8 laps, and the probably the safest way out of all of them is just do it in the middle, 9 and 9, which I've done, and I just played it safe. And now I'm up to P4, so you can see now riding on board with the Evolution that just made that mistake. You can see that I'm just outside the slipstream, about 1.2 seconds, 1.3 seconds ahead, and now I've just got to try and keep it calm. And I was reasonably confident that if I just drove smooth without pushing too hard, that he wouldn't be able to gain on me, because I'd noticed that I was actually gaining on him before that instant. So if he's got fuel saving to do, if he doesn't get in my slipstream, I didn't feel like he was going to be able to get close enough to make any form of move on me. Obviously his tyres are going to start wearing. My Porsche, quite nice on the tyres. There are obviously a lot newer than his as well. Obviously I've done that one less lap, which is worth a lot more. But you can see there on the replay camera, got a nice comfortable gap, and the Golf in front of me a little bit too far ahead for me to worry about. So there was no point me overdriving this last stint. What I wanted to do now for this last lap and a half was just keep the car on the track. Don't make any stupid errors. You know, I didn't want to make an error like he did going through that corner. You can see I've got a comfortable gap. He's not. If I keep it on the track, he's not going to get this position back. So I'd be, you know, a P4 position would be great in this race. It's a high split race. A lot of points up of it are available in this race. Going down the final straight for the last time now, going over the line, and we're coming through to the final lap now. Lap 18. Let's have a little look now. We go over the finish line. You can see the gap there, and I've actually increased the gap. You can see it's up to about 1.6 seconds. So I've got a nice comfortable gap. P3 up ahead, 3 seconds ahead, and P1 and 2 6 seconds ahead. I haven't really got. There's no point in battling with them. As I got on the curb a little bit, then I was trying to take it that smooth that I actually took it too well and got on the curb and got a bit of oversteering. Again, going through this corner, I had to back off a bit because I ran a little bit wide. So got a little panicky because I was trying to take it. I think when you start trying to drive safer, sometimes you make errors because you come out of a rhythm and you stop concentrating on, you know, hitting the exact braking spot. You brake it a little bit early, so the car's turning in a little bit different, but just about got away with all that, and still 1.3 seconds behind the Evo behind, even with them mistakes. So I was still fairly confident because 1.3 seconds, you know, I've just got to keep the car on the track, and I've got a nice solid P4 in this Nations race with some very fast drivers in this lobby as well. So really happy again to be getting another solid result in this Nations Championship. Actually, it's really annoying that I didn't race the first few races, because some of them races would have been really strong for myself as well, and I was a little bit annoyed that I didn't do it, because I would have been in a good position to get into that the first top 24 stars race. It would have been very close. There's so many good drivers from the UK. It is probably one of the hardest countries to get in. I think France and UK, Germany, Spain, probably the harder countries to get in the top 10 stars. I'm not sure about Italy, because I don't even know if they, obviously they can get in it, but I don't know if they're even allowed to compete in this competition yet. I don't know if that got sorted out yet or not, because it wasn't on the list. But go over the line in P4, a solid race and some good points. Come away from that race with just under 2,400 points, so very happy with that, and that's what I wanted from this race, just a good solid points. And that's why I didn't want to take any risk, because it wasn't worth, you know, pushing and losing the car, because I can't afford to have a bad race really in this. I've just got to keep the car on the track and try and pick up a solid position. He's going to ride on board now with that Renault, as he actually got a really solid exit from that corner, and TRL was trying to make a move on Jomas, and then he had to back off and he lost a lot of time, and the Renault got a little bit on the curb there, but that wasn't a massive issue. He goes through this corner and you're going to see the tyre wear now. This is the RS01 wear. The issue with the RS01 on the Ferrari is with the tyre wear on the rears. When you put the power down through corners like that, sometimes they can just go without any warning, and that's what's happened there to this Renault RS01 driver, and really unfortunate for him, because it wasn't really a massive error by himself. It's just he put the power down too much with obviously that tyre wear. Now this was my issue, and I was so lucky to get away with it. You can see I was really pushing at this point, and this is the issue with, you know, this is why I didn't want to push every lap, because you've got to start getting so close to grass, and just look at literally inches on that left rear tyre, and that's what caused it. But it ended up drifting it perfectly. It got away with that so much. You know, that could have been a massive issue and lost me a lot of time if I would have 360 spun it, or 180 facing the wrong way. But luckily for myself, no issue. Now this was pretty much identical to how my issue happened on the exact same corner, exact same tyre getting on the grass. You're going to see it again when you're pushing the limits. This is how close you're getting them. Luckily for me, this didn't happen, and look how much time he lost. I only lost about 7 tenths, maybe 8 tenths, you know, just under a second. He lost quite a big margin. He lost nearly 3 seconds in that, and that's the difference that, you know, little things can make. And luckily I got away with that and come away with a really solid P4 and some really good points in this championship. So I'm not too sure if I'm going to race the KTM race, because that's a race where there's quite a big advantage, I think, with using the shifter, and for me to use that and set up my pedals, it's a bit of a pain. I've got to move a lot of stuff around, and I don't really want to be doing that just before I'm going to be racing the manufacturer's race. So if I race it, it will just be with paddle shift, which will be a fair bit slower, but we'll see how it goes. I might just concentrate on the manufacturers this week, and then just have one race left with the nations, and just try and get a solid result in that, because I'm not going to make the top 24 stars race anyway, because it's impossible, because there's already been one, and I think there's 3 drivers that are really high up there, so I'd need to be hitting 3,000 points in every race, and that's just more than that, and it's not going to happen. So I might leave the KTM, concentrate on the manufacturers for Saturday's race, and then do the next race after that with the nations, which I should be a little bit better on. And I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed. Click that notification button so you don't miss any future videos. I do upload every single day on GT Sport when possible. Obviously some days I do miss. I think I missed one day the other day, but that's very rare. So thanks again for watching, and I'll be back very soon.